Thì trước khi mình bắt đầu thì xin đại chúng mình chắp tay và niệm Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Dear respected Thay, dear brothers and sisters, dear noble community. Today is September 26th in the year 2021. We're in the Truklang Monastery having our regular Sunday service. How is everyone doing today? I see quite a lot of people who are coming here, and as well as some young friends. And I believe this morning we didn't have a chance to fully practice sitting meditation. And as always, we always love to remind you and to teach you how to sit, how to come back to your breathing. And this morning I'd like to go over that, to remind you, and as well, if you've heard it the first time, maybe you can also hear it the second and third time, because sometimes when you hear, we think that we know it all, but actually sometimes maybe there's some things that we've never heard, and that we can also take that into our practice and into our daily life. And so when we learn how to sit, many of us, we sit regularly. We know the habit of just crossing our legs, sitting maybe at an event, at a session like this, or even somewhere where you practice meditation, sitting on the really cold, hard floor, not like this on the mats. You're very luxurious. But whereabouts in Asia, they don't have mats. They just have the whole wooden floor. And you learn how to practice sitting on the hard wooden floor. But luckily, we don't teach you. We don't force you to sit like that. And as well, when we learn to sit, we know how to walk, how to rest, etc. Because we all learn that when we're such a young age, when we're a baby. And as we grow up, we learn automatically. We learn how to walk, run, jump, fall down, to sit down, to rest, and to relax. But sometimes we do it out of a habit, but we're not aware enough. Are we really mindful enough? Are we aware that we're practicing sitting? Are we really practicing eating mindfully, walking mindfully, and even resting? And in Buddhism, we teach the practice like that, much more deeper. And every time when we come to the Sunday service, myself or some of the brothers, we guide you into practicing sitting meditation. And the practice of meditation is, are you aware enough that you are doing what you're doing? It's not just truly sitting, nor truly walking, but it's everything that you do throughout the day. Driving your car, washing the dishes, eating. And sometimes we're doing that, but sometimes we're thinking about something else while we're doing it. Many of us here this morning, if we're practicing chanting, not many of us are really chanting, are we? While we're chanting, our mind is probably thinking somewhere else. Do you have plans today? Am I going to be running late? Do I have an appointment? Or do I have other worries that are coming into my mind? I have works, stress. Those are many things that we often tend to think about as we're doing something. Not just sitting or chanting, but everything while we're working, while we're eating. Sometimes that we need to put that to the side and focus more on what we're trying to do in the present moment. We learn how to slow down. And many times that in the monastics, we share that our mind is like a monkey mind, or our mind is like the buffalo. We imagine the monkey. What does the monkey do? It jumps around from branch to branch. A buffalo, sometimes it runs around the field. And sometimes our mind is just like that. Our mind is always jumping from one branch to another branch. Or maybe it's like a buffalo that's always constantly running and running. But we don't know how to stop. We can't stop. We don't want to stop. And that is something that we need to learn. We need to practice on that. Learning how to stop. Learning to be aware of what we're doing. Sometimes if we let our mind do as it does, then sometimes we get very tired. We get exhausted. And I'm sure that many of us, if we were working, we love to work. And we constantly work all the time. We never have time to rest. And sooner or later, you will soon feel burnt out. You feel exhausted because you exerted all your energy, all your efforts into that work that you've been doing. And sometimes you don't know how to take a break, how to relax and just recharge yourself. And meditation is to be able to learn how to take care of yourself. We learn to stop. We learn to recharge, to come back to ourselves, to come back both our body and our mind. And in meditation, we try to emphasize when we're about to sit, we emphasize on our foundation. And foundation here means our key points that we tend to keep us stable, keep us solid. When we are building a house, do we build a house with a roof and all the exterior around in the first time? No. Because what happens when we build the exterior of the roof? It all collapses. But if we're able to start from the ground, we will build the foundation, then we start to build everything above that. We build the foundation, we build the base, we build many layers on top of that. And then we can put the roof on top of the house. And just like in meditation, we need to establish our foundation. If we're sitting on a bench or on a chair, we'd like to invite you to place both your feet touching the ground or on the cushion. And sometimes we need to move forward rather than leaning back. And for those who are sitting on the mat or on the cushion, we sit on the cushion, try to sit 1/3 or 2/3 of the cushion. Have our bottom raised up and our 2 knees touch the mat or the ground. From then on, we establish these 3 key points: our 2 knees or maybe our 2 feet and our bottom. That is our foundation. That keep us stable and keep us solid. And once we have established our foundation, we can then go towards our posture. Our posture is also very key in meditation. If we're sitting hunched, our back's kind of curved, what happens? You have a hard time breathing, you block your lungs, you block your airway. And you may feel comfortable, but it's also not comfortable for your spine and for your whole body. And so when we adjust our posture sitting upright. Imagine yourself pulling a string, imaginary string attached to your spine. You gently pull it up so that you straighten your back. Don't strain too much, but keep it rigid. And if we're sitting on a chair or on a bench, we tend to have a tendency to lean against the back of the wall or lean against the back of the chair, because we think that this is something very solid, it supports us. That is very true. But as well as if we get too comfortable leaning against the back of the wall or the back of the chair, what happens? Sooner or later, you get a little bit sleepy. You start to fall asleep. And you may close your eyes and you may make yourself that you're actually meditating, but sometimes you rock your head back and forth. And people will think that you are listening to rock and roll. But sometimes you're not really meditating. But when we are able to be more attentive, establish our foundation, our posture, you're more aware, you're more awake. If you don't believe me, try out. See how long you can sit by leaning against the back of the chair or the back of the wall for half an hour. So we encourage you for those who are sitting on a chair, try your best to not lean against the back of the chair. I know it's very supportive. Sometimes we can lean back just for a few minutes, but sometimes we also need to push ourselves a bit to keep ourselves awake. And if we're sitting on the ground, on the mat, on the cushion, we have the habit of just usually of crossing our legs, which is fine. But sometimes if we sit for half an hour or maybe 10 minutes or more, one of our legs will soon fall asleep, start to get numb. And in Buddhism, we teach you 3 types of posture on sitting cross-legged. The first is the full lotus, and that is having both your legs up, cross-legged. So your foot on your left leg, left foot on your right leg. And sometimes many of us, we have big legs, big thighs, and sometimes it's very hard for us. But for those who are very flexible enough, you can try that out. Help you practice that. The Buddha usually sits full lotus. And even we want to sit just like the Buddha. Sometimes we try to sit like the Buddha, but we go through so much pain. And that is something that we don't want to encourage you. If you're trying to endure the pain, then that's not really meditation. Because in that moment, you're trying to overcome that pain. You're telling yourself, oh, I can do this, I can do this, I can make it. And sooner or later, after you release your legs start to feel so numb that you can't stand up. It takes you some time to get the blood flowing back to your legs. The second way is to sit half lotus, and that is having one of your legs over the other. If we can put our right foot over the left leg, or our left foot over the right leg. And that is also a comfortable way for us, if we're able to do that. And if, however, we're unable to use the full lotus or half lotus, we can try the Burmese style. And that is having one leg out and one leg in. You're not putting one leg over the other. So if you're sitting, you have your right leg out, left leg inside. And that way you also feel comfortable. You feel more stable, more solid. And a lot of people enjoy this posture because they don't have to exert so much force. They don't have to go through so much pain through sitting in full lotus or half lotus. And I encourage you to try that out when you have time coming to the meditation sessions at home as well. And when we want to build that foundation, and we're starting to build the first layer already, we start to add more layers on top of that. We start to build the interior of our house. And we can then move on to our hands. Usually our hands, we use our hands a lot. And sometimes our hands also need some time to relax, to rest. In Buddhism, you see that the Buddha, his hands are very flat. The right hand over the left hand. And in Buddhism, this is called the mudra of subduing all evil. Or we can say this is the mudra of concentration as well. Why is it called like that? Because when the Buddha was practicing sitting meditation, he put his 2 hands like that in that mudra to subdue any evil that may come to him. And these evil are distractions, outside distractions, any distractions in his mind as well. And sometimes we are uncomfortable to place our hands like that, and that's okay. We can also place our hands on our 2 knees. Whatever way that makes you feel comfortable, relax. And when we move on from the hands, we go up to our head. And as we meditate, we keep your head upright. Sometimes we look up too high or we look far too down. And that also hurts our neck. And when we try to meditate, keep your head just at the right level, not too high or not too low. Or sometimes we love to look around as well. We had to realize that our eyes also play a part in our meditation. Our eyes love to see everything that's around us. And when it comes to a time for sitting, we encourage everyone's eyes are closed. It helps you focus better. It helps you maintain your breathing. And if, however, we open our eyes, what happens next? You think that you are concentrated, you're mindful enough, but actually you start to see that someone's, rocking their head back and forth. You start the person seeing on their phone. You start to see that people are also looking around. And when that happens, that you start to think to yourself, why is everyone doing this? I don't have to do it. So sometimes our eyes love to see, but we also have to train in such a way that we avoid any distractions around us. And if somehow we feel a bit sleepy on that day, then you can open your eyes halfway and we focus on an object that we mean for our eyes to maintain on. So sometimes we say that focus on the tip of your nose. Or sometimes we ask you to look at the ground. Why? Because if you start looking at things around you, your meditation is disturbed. You're distracted. And now, the important part, we come to our breathing. Our breathing, our breath, is a tool, is also our friend, but is also mindfulness as well. We often forget that we're breathing every day, and sometimes we're not aware of it. We wake up in the morning, we go brush our teeth, we get dressed, we get ready to go to school, get ready to go work. And do we ever spend a few minutes of just acknowledging our breath, becoming aware of our breath? Because our breath has helped us maintain for us to live every single day. And if our breath is not there one day, what happens? That is the moment that we start to die. We start to fade away. Because we're not breathing. If we're not breathing, we're not living. And so the breath, it's a responsibility, or it has the ability to become a bridge to connect both your body and for your mind. When our mind is scattered, we can depend on our breathing. Take a few minutes, take a few seconds of really just noticing your breath, noticing your in-breath and your out-breath. And when you notice that, your mind starts to come back. It starts to settle down. In the beginning, it was all thinking about this and that, jumping from one branch to the other. But when you bring your mind back to your breathing, all of a sudden it starts to calm down slowly and slowly. And isn't that a moment that we want to have? We want to have some stillness. We want to have some calmness and peace in our life. I'm sure that not many of us want that. And I don't think that many of us want something chaos, hectic, crazy every single day. We want some time for ourselves. And this is the moment that you can come back to your breathing. And as we practice breathing, sometimes we love to try to keep at the same pace our breath with the other person who's next to us. Sometimes their breath is long, but your breath is short. And so you try your best and exert your breathing to match the other person's breathing rate. But really, you don't have to do that. If you're aware that you have a long breath, then you recognize, you acknowledge that you have a long breath. If you're aware that you have a short breath, then let it be a short breath. There's no need to extend, control, shorten, or our breathing. Because our breathing is just right for us. We're able to breathe naturally. We don't have to exert so much force or control of our breathing. Sometimes people love to breathe in, like exert that. They're showing that breathing in, breathing out. It does show you put a lot of effort, but you can also don't have to put too much effort. But simply just breathing naturally, calmly, and relaxing is already enough for you. And when we come back to our breathing, we bring our mind back to the present moment. We bring back both our body and our mind. And we are being aware of our mind. And this is something that we often cannot do. And that's okay. Meditation is something that we can work on and build on. Many of us, we have a perception that when we want to practice meditation, we think that when we practice one session or two sessions, we think we have mastered it. But actually, you have not. Even for many Zen masters who have practiced meditation for many years, they still continue on practicing, following their breathing, being aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. And if we think that we, as a beginner, we start, it feels a little bit easy, and then sooner or later, you go to the session and you start to practice half an hour or maybe 45 minutes. Sooner or later, you tell yourself, yeah, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And so this is something that we need to work on. And we always encourage you every day, try to put in 5 or 10 minutes of your time, of just coming back to your breath, settling your mind. We give ourselves a chance to look into ourselves as we come back to our breathing and as we come back to our body and our mind. And we continue on to work on ourselves because we have a lot of things that we want to transform. We want to improve ourselves. We want to self-develop, that we need to come back, work on being aware of our breathing, meditating. And as we meditate, we are aware that we're actually both a guard and a visitor of our mind. When we're meditating, sometimes maybe a thought, a sound may come during the session, and your mind observes it. They see that thought, they see that sound, they recognize it. And sometimes we often tend to push that, we force it, that's not there. We try to empty everything because we think that meditation is emptying our mind. But it's not just that. We try to observe where our mind is going. If you are the dog owner, you have the leash for your dog, and your dog loves to wander around. And you watch your dog wander around, but you also hold the leash onto that dog. And if that dog travels further, very far from you, what you need to do, you pull that leash for that dog to come back. We are also the owner of our mind. If our mind is wandering around, we bring it back using that leash, using our breath to bring our mind back. We observe where it goes, but we don't force it or push it or pretend that those thoughts, those sounds are not there. If we are able to acknowledge it, to recognize it, then our meditation is also much easier than that. If we push things to the side, we force them that are not there, sooner or later those sounds, those thoughts come back much more stronger from the beginning. And that is something we want to avoid. And in meditation, we use the method of counting our breaths. As we breathe in, we count 1, breathe out 2. We continue to count all the way up to 10. And once we have reached to 10, we can start over again if we really need to. But if somehow as we count, we start to lose our counting, we have to start over to counting 1. Why is that? Because instead of having our mind directed to something else, thinking about maybe what we're going to be eating for tonight or what we're going to be doing after this session, that we can bring our mind focus on just counting our breaths. It gives you a new object for your meditation. You're not thinking about anything else but just counting your breaths. And when you feel that as you count, you begin to truly focus on your breathing. And from then on, you can let go of that counting and you just follow the rise and fall of your abdomen or maybe your breathing. And it's the same applies to walking or resting. If we're walking, we enjoy each of our steps. We're aware of each step that we're taking. If we're resting, we need to also learn how to rest. We rest, sometimes we rest with our phone in our hand. But really, we just need to drop that to the side. Scan our whole body, scan from head to toe. Being aware of each organ, each body part that you have. And from then on, you combine your breathing as well. And that is also learning how to rest, relaxing, and much more deeper. And I guarantee you, if you try this, I'm sure that you will have a good night's rest. And sometimes we can enjoy whatever we're doing because we are truly present. If we're able to bring ourselves in the moment that maybe we're washing dishes, then we can enjoy washing the dishes, scrubbing, using the soap, and even rinsing. Or even driving a car, you're aware that wherever you're going, you know the direction you're going to. So when you have mindfulness, you give rise to concentration. You give rise to insight. And that is something that I like to remind you, to help you, and to also to teach you in the art of meditation, coming back to our breathing, establishing our foundation, our home as well. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Have a wonderful week. For those who need a translation, please raise your hand and the brothers will come to you with a translation system.